Hi, it's Dre Griggs of the City of Wisdom. Today we'll be discussing 6 servant leadership characteristics that you would want to add to your leadership style. Because there are many ways to get the results that you want, right? You could cheat, you could steal, you could bribe, you can do lots of things that maybe wouldn't fall within the character aspect of a leader. You can take credit for other people's work. You could, really grind your employees and your staff with threats and fear, or you can focus and create a culture in a team that understands that it's about self sacrifice, love, and genuineness and trustworthiness. And when it comes to you creating that culture and in your own servant leadership's mindset, then you want to make sure that you have 6 things that we're going to discuss today. Within these 6 things, I really usually take my servant leadership from the Bible because it really focuses a lot on love and mindset and sacrifice and genuineness and trustworthiness, where I do think we can pull some of the information. Now, what I'll do is in the show notes and the description, I'll put like the verses that I took it from, but I'm just going to really talk about these 6 attributes today for the video so that it's not like too long for you. So the first one is, right, don't let anyone despise you of your youth, but set as an example, right, in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity. So in this, it's just a reminder that there are going to be some things that other people have done longer than you. They may be been at the company longer than you. They may have been in the industry longer than you. They may feel like they have a better degrees or educations or certifications, and not to let anything that someone perceives as a strength over you to influence and inflict and change your ability to lead others. You're going to lead by example. Servant leaders always lead by example. They don't ask of others what they're not willing to do of themselves. And it doesn't mean that you have to do exactly the one, two, three, four, 5 things that they do in their particular day, but it does mean that the overall culture in that you're really focusing on, well, the time that I ask of you, the focus that I ask of you, that I ask that of myself. That I'm not going to say, don't waste your time, and then I take a 2 hour lunch every day. I'm not going to say everybody needs to be in the office and then I'm never in the office. Whatever it is that I ask of my team, they know that I ask it of myself first. And that is how you overcome a lot of those issues where people feel like they have a perceived strength over you. And oftentimes it doesn't really matter, right? A lot of people have strengths over us. A leader doesn't mean that I have to be the best at everything. And that's sometimes a misconception. It means that the culture that I'm trying to create, the strengths that I have, that I believe I can help you to achieve your goal and the company to achieve its overall goal. And servant leaders understand that they're really focusing not only on the company's goals, but also on the person's goals. The second one is you don't want to do anything out of rivalry or deceit, but in humility, count others more significant, better than yourselves. Servant leaders know that the strength of a team is tied to the strength of the team. And it's a very funny way of saying the results that we get is not as much a reflection on me as much as it is a reflection on you, your strengths. And I'm going to make sure you get rewarded and compensated correctly for that as the leader of the team. And so whether that is acknowledgement and praise because I'm like, hey, you know what? This work was done by, team member ABC and I want to, give them a shout out and maybe bring them to the meeting, whether it's in their, raise or their compensation package, whatever it is, or they want to be like promoted, that you make sure you're not competing with your teammates. If you're a servant leader, then you are focusing on their goals and helping them achieve them. And as a result, you often will achieve your goal, right? We've heard that, spoken in many different ways. The same would be if you're an entrepreneur with your company. If you focus on your customers first, your clients first, where you give them the answers to their questions, you give your best material, ultimately you're going to end up getting the reward back, right? You have different rules of reciprocity, as we've talked about a little bit earlier, where there's going to be things that come back to you. And so you want to focus on that. Things are going to come back to you. So don't be in the forefront that's like me, 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 me. You're focusing on your team, them, and then they will step up to the challenge to help you. The third one is you want to make sure that you surround yourself with people that it says you look for able-bodied people, right, trustworthy, that aren't looking for bribes, and then you want to place those people in leadership roles, which is a very simple way of saying, look, if you want to build a servant leadership team, a servant leadership mindset, a servant leadership culture, then you have to reward the people who are portraying servant leadership. You don't simply want to say, well, look, I like the idea of a servant leadership, but I'm ultimately going to promote anybody who gets the best numbers and the best results. Where you should not only focus on the results, but you should also add some metrics in the servant leadership where people are able to say, okay, this is important. It is being measured because whatever the company is measuring is what we're going to decide is most important, right? Like I'm not going to focus on any servant leadership aspects if I know the company doesn't care about that. It's not mentioned in any of my performance meetings. It's not mentioned in anything outside of just more of a wish list by the leadership. If you're a servant leader, take the time to promote other servant leaders, groom your culture of servant leaders, and then the results will work for you. Next, you want to make sure that you're not like lording over people. So, micromanaging is like a thing. And I'm not saying that that leadership style doesn't work. For some, I'm saying that your goal should be to mature your team in a way where they don't need to be micromanaged, where they understand what it is that you are looking for. I found that in a lot of leaderships that there is a bottleneck at the leader because the leader has to approve everything. And so nothing goes out without the actual leader doing it. I'm saying maybe you could, like work up someone to be a lower level approver where they're able to say, okay, if it's, I don't know, let's say your company generates 100 million a year. So if something is like worth 50,000 or 100,000 or lower, maybe they can approve it themselves. And you can give them a matrix where you guys sit and discuss things. You want to make sure that you are giving people that opportunity to where you're not lording over them because I do feel like it can make people feel less confident in themselves because they don't feel like you're confident in them. And it also just makes sometimes people feel like they're like pawns and could be used in some way in like this grander scheme of things. But if you're grooming people to be leaders themselves, they feel a little bit better because that they know is like, okay, if I do my best, then it's going to be rewarded. That I'm going to get more opportunity. That the trust that I have for them, they have for me, and it creates a really good culture inside of your organization. Next, you want to make sure that we focus on the trustworthy aspect. And by trustworthy, I do mean that you say what you mean and you mean what you say. It's not that, like, I would almost say, think of this in a servant leadership mindset almost as a parent with a child. If you've been a parent and you've ever told your kids that we're going to do, that we're going to go to the movie today, if you don't go to that movie, it's not a question of you explaining why you didn't go to the movie, right? In their mind, you said we're going to do it and we didn't do it. Now, on one end, that means that as a parent, you have to be very particular with your words. You don't want to promise something if you're not sure it's going to happen. So you manage expectations, which obviously helps you in your servant leadership role as well. But then on the second end, if you do promise something that you want to keep your word, you want people to understand that when you say something, that it's going to happen. Now, it doesn't mean that every so often things just genuinely fall apart and the plan doesn't work. But it does mean that you really understand how important it is for your team and leader and organization to believe in you when you say something that you're going to follow through on that something. And then the last thing that we'll talk about today is, and it's kind of like a little bit of a one and a two, but we're going to talk about doing everything in love and genuineness, that you're not really focusing on yourself. That love is that self sacrifice to help other people. That when you help others, that they will feel empowered and rewarded and they will ultimately help you. And so you want to be genuine in that. You don't want people to feel like, well, you're just going through the motions, like we're dating and we're in the honeymoon phase for the first like month or two. And then after a while, you're going to see the real me, right? You don't want people to feel that you're not being genuine, that you're just always really nice and engaged around like deadline time or around like promotion time or whatever, those different events are that happen in your organization. But you want to make sure people genuinely feel like there's nothing going on and I'm just checking in on you, making sure you're okay. That if you see them post something, that you say something, that when you wish people happy birthday or happy anniversary or whatever it is, that you just let them know that, hey, I'm keeping track of things, that the little things do matter and people do pay attention to those things. And then I always like to end with, hey, let's not grow weary in doing good. And so if you find that you're not getting the results that you want to right away, where you feel like the servant leadership isn't really working, whether that is because of the results or the team members or the friction that you're seeing, whatever it is that makes you feel like, hey, this isn't working, don't grow weary in doing good. It may mean that you have to make some tweaks to your team. It may mean you have to make some tweaks to your leadership style in a very, not in the sense of overhauling where I'm not even going to try to be a servant leader, but in the sense that I understand that there are different motivating factors for different people. And so I'm going to get to understand you better, and you're going to get to understand me better. And as we work together, we're going to start getting the results we're looking for. Don't grow weary in doing good where you just give up. You're just like, you know what? This isn't working. Like being a servant leader, I don't know. Maybe that's another company, but it's not this one. And maybe it's another person's organization, but it's not my organization. You don't want to grow weary in doing good. Doing a good thing is never something to give up on. And so those are going to be the six mindsets, the six things that you want to add to your toolbox when it comes to being a servant leader so that you're able to get the results that you want in your company, in your organization, in your team. Until next time, Wisdomites, remember wisdom is asking the right questions to get the right answers. Keep asking those questions and you'll keep getting those answers. Continue blessings.